If they are such simple choices, why aren't more of us making those simple choices?
Well, because we think of lifestyle changes as something that we do today, and maybe years later we might, live a little longer. And then we have a lot of false choices. Am I going to live longer, or is it just going to seem longer, And we found that sustainable changes are based on pleasure. And because these mechanisms are so dynamic, when you change your lifestyle, you can grow so many new brain cells that your brain gets bigger in just 3 months. Your skin gets more blood, so you don't age as quickly. Your sexual organs get more blood in the same way that Viagra works. So it's not just about living longer, it's about living better. And when you make these changes, most people find they feel so much better so quickly, it reframes the reason for making them from fear of dying to joy of living, and joy is what's sustainable.
Dr. Sinclair, Dr. Ornish, Professor Hallis, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Alive! Let's have some fun before the crowds arrive!
The internet is filled with old corporate films, World's Fair promotions, and even cartoons showing how we have tried for decades to imagine the future, as in this 1967 film about how we might shop from home by the year 2000.
This video console will be channeled into the store of her choice. There, a camera will scan a display of wares, which she will select by push button. All bills and transactions will be carried out electronically.
Predictions about computers, cell phones, and vastly improved travel have been around for more than a century, and in a crude way, many have been right, even if their expected results were not.
Welcome to a journey into the future, a journey for everyone today into the every...
Wrong, it is often because they are wildly optimistic, like this General Motors film from the 1960s. Man had not yet landed on the moon, and yet it predicts us living there.
Here are bases of communication and supply. Men in space now monitor the Earth, while men on Earth are finding a whole new world of answers to the worldwide needs of man.
The same movie predicted farming beneath the ocean,
while trains of submarines transport materials and goods along the waterways of the undersea.
and so much more.
And for our deserts, a new technology. Waters from the sea made fresh as rain to nourish crops planted in the sand.
If all that had played out, maybe Thomas Edison would have been correct in 1911 when he predicted that by this time, Americans would evolve into the master culture of the world, capable of almost anything. Such predictions have often told us less about the future than about our past. Many are suspiciously like the wishes of former generations, their hopes for years to come.
Apparently in AD 2000, we shall be having a hair-raising time.
And so, like all those folks in those old YouTube videos, we keep trying to predict, even though the future is never what it once was. CNN, the present.
So will some of the more ambitious predictions of the past ever come true? Technology is getting better, stronger, faster. Will we ever create machines that can outsmart humans? Our guests say it is possible right now in the year 2010. Joining me now, futurist Watts Wacker and Wired Magazine senior editor Nick Thompson. Watts, I know that you believe in the next 10 years this decade is going to belong to a group of people you call digital natives. Who are these people? What does that mean? What do they do?
Well, I think Nick will expand on it as well, but if you really, think of it at its core, it's the people who have been born in an entire digital world. Their whole life has been surrounded by the ether, as it would be called. We're going through airwaves on our show, but emails go through the ether. So their whole life's been framed like that.
So they don't have to adapt the way many of us had.
They're the Creoles, if you will, the first generation. Okay.
What do you think, Nick?
I think absolutely they'll have a lot of power, they'll have a lot of influence. One thing we're going to see is that computer power expands extremely quickly, and the next time you make a fast computer, it helps you invent the next faster computer. So if trends continue, by about, let's say, 2 decades from now, the average person will have computers that are more powerful than what all of NASA has right now. So you're going to have this incredible capacity to use computers. Now, some of that will be good, and some of it will be less good.
So, but what are the implications of that? Give me, I'm not the most tech-savvy person in the world. Yeah. Some real-world examples that I can get my head around.
So, for example, I think that drug trials, right now the way a drug trial works is it's done in people. You test a drug in 1,000 different people, you see how they react. I think we'll have simulated models models of human beings. We're already starting to have that. And you'll have drug trials that happen much more rapidly inside of computers. There are all sorts of consequences to that. It's beginning now. In 10 years, I think it'll be relatively common. In 25 years, it'll be a huge part of medicine.
Watts, I know you also predict that when you have this sort of these different groupings of people, that it can cause a generational clash. I think we're already seeing that to a certain extent, don't you think?
I do. I think it'll be more pronounced, but as it relates to what Nick was talking about, assimilation of technology, computational advances, we're going to see the first 65-plus age cohort, mine, the baby boomers, who are going to actually not say, I'm too old for this. And so we're going to see the first generation of oldsters who are technologically savvy. That isn't going to necessarily stop any sort of conflict, but if anything, it's going to allow them the opportunity to dialogue.
Well, you say dialogue, and we're Twittering, we're Facebooking, we're doing so much. Yeah. Talk to me about, that's obviously only going to increase, and all of these new avenues are going to open up in terms of how we communicate. But what does that do to us in terms of our relationships as human beings and our communities? They've already changed so much just because of things like Facebook and Twitter.
Well, I think one thing that people have said before, I think is very perceptive, is that what these technologies do is they bring your distant friends closer, and they make your closer friends a little more distant. Because you're not engaging with 10 very close people who are just with your nuclear family, you're engaging with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So it does that to our friendships, but it also changes the way we think, right? I think the next generation of people will be much better at multitasking. They'll be much better at making quick decisions. They'll be much better at navigating large groups of people, but they'll probably be less good at extended periods of concentration.
You agree?
Well, I agree on the first part of what Nick said, in that we used to have a very few friends that we had very deep relationships that lasted a lifetime. Now we have very little relationships that last for nanoseconds with lots of people.
Right.
That part, I think we got pat. What I think is the most interesting about this, because social media is not a fad, right? We think we all agree on that. How it's being used may be faddish at the moment, because we're trying to figure it all out, is that we've created two things that I'm concerned and kind of paying attention to. One is we've become neo-tribes, and we're desperately searching to find people like ourselves. And if that's the case, then it's too easy to shut out someone's opinion that you don't like. Okay, so we're not sharing like we could, because I don't have to be exposed to something I don't want to. The second is what it means for the concept of being an expert or an authority. We have naive sourced knowledge. I can go to the doctor and know more about my maladies than they, or more about the drug interaction effects than they can, because they can't do the reading to keep up with their profession anymore. So we're not so sure that anyone's truly an expert. And if you think of it in a verb as well as a noun, expertise can be created by oneself without any formal training.
Let me take you both big...
I think the most interesting thing that will happen in 10 years is that we completely reverse our orientation to the subject of Big Brother and privacy. And the paradox of the times we live in is that ever since George Orwell wrote the book that gave us Big Brother, we've organized our future around ensuring that that would never happen.
Right.
Right. Well, the reality is you don't have any privacy anymore. You use a cell phone.